Good evening, students. Hope you're able to hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll get started. Can someone tell me what was the last topic we were dealing? To what I remember, we were discussing about this is the last problem that we did, right? So, which was a concept based on the principle of calorimetry. The amount of heat lost by the substance is equal to lost by a hotter substance is equal to the amount of heat gained by the colder substance, right? So we discussed about different types of heats in the previous class. What were the different types of heats? We discussed about the specific heat capacity, specific heat, then heat capacity. Then we discussed about the latent heat part, right? So having all these points in mind, we discussed the principle of calorimetry and we did a problem also. Now, the next part of this chapter that we are supposed to concentrate upon is the heat transfer part. So it is this part. But before I proceed to the heat transfer part, just give me a confirmation if there is any doubt from the previous topics that we have discussed. Things are clear? Yeah? Okay. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, thermal properties of matter, the first part we were concerned about how different materials expand on heating. So what happens when you subject heat to that material? You give heat or you extract heat, how do those materials respond? Second important concept that we concentrated upon is how much is the amount of heat that you need to give? We were concentrating on how to measure the amount of heat that is required. And what is the third part? Now we are concentrated upon how to transfer the heat from one place to another. Okay, so the concept is very simple. Listen, what it is. So the major heading is called as heat transfer. So when you talk about heat transfer, heat can be transferred from one place to another through three different processes called as thermal conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay. So the modes through which the heat can be transferred from one place to another, we are going to see the introduction. So heat can be transferred from one place to another by three different methods. And what are they? Conduction, convection, and radiation. Right. So generally what happens is you talk about the process of conduction. This conduction is a property that is observed in solids. Right. So solids, when you take, they are usually heated by the process of conduction. Means what is going to happen? See, for example, let's say there is fire, okay? On top of which you kept a vessel like this. And this vessel is having a handle. Now, all these, this vessel, this handle, everything is made up of aluminum. Okay, it is made up of, let's say, aluminum. Okay. Now, what will happen when heat is supplied? Initially, at T is equal to 0, guys, tell me what will happen. You know this already. So, which part will get heated? So, which part will get heated up? It is the part which is directly in contact with the fire. Right. After this, let's say you're coming after 15 minutes. Right. Initially, at T is equal to 0, will you be able to hold this handle? So T is equal to 0, you can hold it, yes. But after 15 minutes you come, if you try to hold this handle, what will happen? You can sense some heat. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys able to? So now the question is, this is the place where the material is subjected to heat. Then how did heat get transferred to this place? So what was the process that was happening inside that material for the heat to get transferred from point A to point B? Is what we need to answer. So first question is, when you talk about this aluminum, here it is a solid material. So solids generally are heated up by the process of conduction. Means what is going to happen is, so listen, when you talk about liquids and gases, they are heated by the process of convection that we will discuss at the time of convection, right? And the third type of heat transfer, the process of radiation, is the one which does not require any intervening medium. It does not require any medium for this kind of a process to take place. So for conduction to take place, what medium is needed? You need a solid medium. For convection to take place, you need a liquid or a gas medium. Whereas for radiation to take place, what is there? You don't need any kind of a medium. For example, the radiation that we are receiving from sun, right? It is an electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic wave. So electromagnetic waves are generally called as non-mechanical waves, means they do not require any medium for their propagation to take place. So radiation is one such phenomenon where there is no medium that is getting involved at all. Okay. So we receive heat from the sun by the process of radiation. So conduction and convection generally are very slow processes. I can say slow, I'll not say very slow. They're generally slow processes, but as radiation is a rapid process. Okay. Now, if you guys are clear with the basic introduction of it, first let us concentrate on the fact of what is thermal conduction. Shall we get started?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So thermal conduction, listen to it. So it is a process in which the heat is transferred from one part of an object to another at a lower temperature through the principle of molecular collisions. And the most important point to be noted here is there is no actual flow of matter taking place. Means the particles, if they have a particular coordinate associated with them at instant t, the same coordinate will be associated with the particle even if you come after 5 years and see. That is the meaning of it. Unless the material is burnt out, that is one. I'm just trying to give an example. That is the meaning of without any actual flow of matter. Okay, so understand this. Why there is no actual flow of matter and how the matter actually moves in the case of convection, you will be able to understand it. Listen to this carefully. For that, we need to get to the molecular mechanism. So when I say conduction, right, the first thing that should come to your mind is solid. So when I talk about the solid, what is the important physical property that is associated with it? The important physical property, the molecules in a solid are arranged in such a way that they have a fixed position, right? So solids are heated through conduction. When one end of the metal rod is heated, what will happen? When you start supplying heat, there will be certain particles which will get subjected to that heat. So when you give heat to a material, like what is that you can expect from it? When you give heat to a particle, what is the first thing that you can observe? When you supply energy to it, it is no more going to be in its equilibrium position. So it is going to start, the molecules at the hotter end will vibrate with greater amplitude. They undergo vibration process. And they will start vibrating with greater amount of amplitude because they have greater amount of energy. Now, what will these molecules do? So when they have greater kinetic energy, there are fixed particles which are subsequent to that particular particle which is vibrating. So what will this vibrating particle do? The vibrating particle will go and collide with the subsequent particle, accepted? These molecules will collide with the subsequent, in the sense I'm talking about the neighboring particles. So when it gets collided with the neighboring particles, so try to understand the first particle which was directly in contact with the heat got its energy from the heat itself. And that heat energy got converted to the vibrational kinetic energy of that particular particle. Now, due to collision, what will happen? This particle, whichever is having greater energy, would have transferred its energy to the neighboring particle. But the question is, has the first particle moved from its position? Has the first particle moved from its position? The answer is no. But is the process of heat transfer succeeded? Yes. Because we know that in collision, what will happen? There is sound and heat that will get generated. Right? So neighboring particles of lesser kinetic energy, then the energy is shared between them. The kinetic energy of the neighboring molecules will increase, and this energy transfers takes place from one layer to the next without the molecules leaving their average location. That is, they have a fixed position, and this way heat is passed from the passed to the colder end of the object. Okay, when this kind of
Sir?
a tell me.
So the particles with respect to the system stay at the same position, but with respect to suppose a person standing outside, so would they move?
No, they will not, right? Because it is with respect to the system only that you're supposed to see. You're not supposed to see from outside part. Because that depends on the orientation through which you're seeing, right? From which angle you're seeing is important. Okay. So here, when I talk about this, the name itself is molecular mechanism. So you need to take the origin within the molecule itself. Right.
Okay, sir.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, I have a doubt. Sir, we know that solids are most stable form of matter, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, so, like, if we are eating, the molecules will gain energy and become unstable.
Only that particular molecule. No?
Yes,
It is
sir.
not the whole system. Yes.
Only that particular molecule will become unstable, and in order to become stable, it transfers the heat acquired to the next molecule.
It's not the heat. That heat is getting converted to the kinetic energy form. Right. That vibrational kinetic energy, that vibrational kinetic energy is creating a collision with the subsequent particle. That collision is actually, that kinetic energy is again getting converted to heat. Right, to understand the scenario. It's not like it is taking the heat from the fire and transferring it to something else. No, that is not what is happening. The heat energy is getting first converted to vibrational kinetic energy. That vibrational kinetic energy is transferring the energy to the subsequent particle through collision, again in the form of heat energy. So this is the energy conversion that is taking place. Now tell me, what is your doubt?
Sir, my doubt is like, see, sir, like, in order to acquire stable form, it should give away energy, right?
Right. It should give away energy, but what is your doubt in it?
So it can directly transfer the heat energy, right, to the next molecule.
No, it cannot do it, no. If it does directly transfer, then the particles are said to move from their relative positions. Then the whole concept of conduction is wrong. Means what should have happened, if you if you cook in an aluminum vessel, its shape should change after every cooking process. What do you mean by the change taking place in shape? Means the particles are disturbed from their relative positions. That doesn't happen. No? That's what is observed. So you're giving a theoretical explanation to whatever is observed. So don't look at science in such a way that we have a concept and you're expecting something to happen. You're actually able to observe certain phenomenon. For that, you're trying to give a justification that this is what has happened. Okay. We cannot control the reverse factor.
Yes, sir.
So think
Sir,
in that term. Yeah.
Sir, in the first case, while heating the first molecule of the solid, if you consider wood as the heating subject, then the first molecule will receive energy, right?
Yes.
So then the second molecule come into picture, then the first
Yes.
molecule, why can't it act as an heating subject?
Why can't it?
Act as a heating subject. So that
See, but that depends on the molecular structure of that particular material also. Generally, when I say solids, metals are good conductors of heat. But wood is not a good conductor of heat. Right? It is because of the molecular arrangement of wood. I'm not sure how many types of wood you know. Right? There is something called as particle wood. There is something called as what do you call it? I suddenly forgot. That something starts with P. Okay, I'll think about it. But wood is in such a way that the particles are arranged where this kind of conduction cannot take place. Just because I say solids, here I don't mean all the solids. I'm mostly talking about metals. Okay. Oh, sorry, plywood I'm talking about. Yeah. See, so you would have heard these words, right? Plywood, teakwood, solid wood. All these things are there, right? The molecular structure itself will be like that. So that is the reason why they are used for dining tables and all those things. You have to understand. Suppose I told you about the particle board, right? So particle board means generally if you take wood, you get the waste from wood, right? You would have seen. Have you ever seen the waste coming out of wood? When these particles are compressed under high pressure, then they form a cake kind of a structure. That is what is called as particle board. That material can't withstand heat. If suppose you take, let's say you have hot milk in a vessel, you try to keep it on top of it, you can see that there is a swelling taking place. I'm not sure if you guys have observed this. Next time observe it, okay? If you have a low quality wood and you try to keep a hot object on top of it, have you ever observed swelling, guys? These kind of things will happen. See, for example, you have a carom board. On top of it, if there is a water drop that is falling, there will be a swelling that will take place. Okay, because it is a property of that particular material. Since you asked, I'm telling, let's get back to the subject. Okay, so when you talk about thermal conduction, there are certain mathematical equations that we are going to get into. Okay, for that mathematical equation to be explained, first we need to attain a condition called as steady state condition, and there is something called as temperature gradient. This term gradient is not new to you. I've used it somewhere else. Can someone tell me? You wrote a test also yesterday. I'm assuming you would have studied.
Sir, upon dx with respect to distance.
Upon dx, right? But what did we see in the previous chapter? There is some important thing we saw in viscosity.
Velocity gradient.
Correct. So we saw velocity gradient, right? So in a similar way, what does temperature gradient mean? The temperature with respect to distance. Now we are going to see. So state, steady state, and temperature. Suppose you take, see here, they have come to this concept, metal rod. Nitish, I hope you'll understand it now. Wood is not a metal. So consider a metal rod which is heated at one end A. So that end is obviously going to be the hotter end. So heat flows from which end to which end? Hot end to the colder end. Through which process? Conduction, you can say it confidently because you're talking about a metal rod, which is a solid. Solid undergoes conduction. So in this process of conduction, if each cross section means if each cross section of this rod receives heat from the adjacent cross section of the hotter side. Is accepted? So when you talk about each cross section will receive the heat from its subsequent cross section from the hotter to the colder side. So then what will happen? A part of this heat is absorbed by the cross section itself, whose temperature increases. Another part is lost into the atmosphere by the process of convection and radiation. So generally, when you take any process, it's not going to be 100% perfect. 100% perfect is an ideal scenario. So what is going to happen when the heat is getting transferred from one layer to another? There is an absorption that is going to take place. In addition to absorption, what else will take place? There will be heat which is lost to the surroundings through the process of convection and radiations from the sides of the cross section, and the rest is conducted to the next cross section. Okay, so in this state, what will happen is the temperature of every cross section of the rod goes on increasing with time, and this rod is said to be in the variable state of heat conduction. Okay, so when something is in this kind of a form, when something is variable, right? When something is varying with respect to time, simple math will not help us to solve it. You need to always go with the help of calculus. Okay, but here to make things simple, what we are going to do is we will try to achieve a condition called as a steady state condition. So for the steady state condition to be achieved, there are certain things that are happening in the scenario have to be controlled. So for the control to take place, what we will do is you will try to cover the sides of the rod with some insulating material so that there is no heat loss from the sides. So what kind of a condition is that? So when you talk about no heat loss, it is called as an adiabatic condition. So after some time, what will happen is this variable state of the rod will get converted to a state called as a steady state. So when steady state, you remember the steady state in liquid? It's almost the same here. So what happens in the steady state in liquid? Can someone tell me? When you talk about a streamlined flow, when can I say that particular condition is under steady state condition?
Like fluid is incompressible.
Sorry,
So
fluid
then the
is
liquid is non-viscous and incompressible.
no, that is an ideal fluid. That is an ideal fluid. I'm not talking about ideal fluid. When will you say, like, what is a mathematical condition you try to speak about? Or what is the physics you try to explain about the nature of particles when you say, when you use the word steady state or streamlined condition?
Sir, they do not, the path do not cross each other.
That is streamlined. That is not the thing. I told you at that point, if you remember, if you take a pipe like this, then if you take a cross section, the velocity of particle reaching that particular cross section will have the same value. You guys remember this? I stressed on this point when I explained at that time. Yes or no? Don't say don't remember,
Yes, sir.
please. Yes. In a similar way, steady state condition with respect to heat flow is going to be similar. The same cross section we are trying to talk about, except the fact that here there is no actual motion of particles that is taking place. So we do not speak about the velocity of particle. Rather, we speak about the temperature of that particular cross section. Accepted? So with respect to heat transfer, when can you say there is a steady state taking place? When the temperature of every cross section of the rod becomes constant. Okay, this word steady state is used
Sir?
in many cases. Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, but that is after a point of time, right? Not immediately.
Yeah, it is after a point of time, provided you follow this insulating condition.
So then what if the rod is conducting material?
Rod is conducting only, no? It is still conducting. What they're trying to say is each cross section has a fixed temperature. Means if I take this particular cross section, its temperature is always T2, but there is a cross section before this, right? There is a layer before this. You're able to understand what I'm trying to say? So if you take this as the rod, first cross section, second cross section, third cross section, fourth cross section. So if you take any particular particle on this cross section, that particle will have the same temperature as what I'm trying to say. Read the statement carefully. I didn't say the whole rod is having the same temperature. Subrajit, you got confused with that.
Yes, sir.
Rod is,
Understood, sir.
rod is still conducting. Okay. So every cross section is going to have a constant temperature. So in the state, what will happen is, in the state, you can confidently say that no heat is absorbed by the rod. Under the variable state, what were all the effects that were taking place in the rod? It was first absorbing the heat. So there was a heat absorption taking place between the subsequent layers. Secondly, there was a loss of heat to the surroundings in the form of convection and radiation. Right? So
Yes, sir.
you restricted that loss of heat through the insulating material. You restricted the heat absorption process through the steady state condition. So when this kind of a scenario has occurred, this state of the rod, when temperature of every cross section of the rod becomes constant and there is no further absorption of heat in any part, is what we call it as the steady state. And during steady state, what will happen is the temperatures of two different parts of the rod are still different, but the temperature of each part remains constant. Means the temperature of every particle on the cross section is constant. So that is what we call it as isothermal surfaces. Iso means same, thermal is temperature. So isothermal surface means a particular cross-sectional area where every particle on the cross-sectional area has a constant temperature. Is that clear?
Oh, sir.
No. Tell me.
Sir, here also we have to assume we are supplying the heat. Suppose we are supplying the heat from one end. So it should, the same amount of heat should be supplied to all the cross section of the particle. particles in the cross section, right?
Yes. It is uniform heat that is supplied.
Okay, sir.
Only then you can call it as steady state condition. I told you, right? We could have analyzed this in variable state condition also, but our current knowledge is not sufficient to do it, because in real time scenario there will be a variable situation also taking place, because we should know how to handle that situation in a practical aspect. Maybe that we'll be learning in the mechanical engineering part or something else, where you'll have better knowledge of mathematical applications. So as of now, where are we restricting ourselves to? Condition of steady state. So to answer your question, under the condition of steady state, the heat supplied, that is the amount of heat flowing per unit time, the rate of flow of heat through the rod is always a constant. So let us understand what is going to happen during the steady state condition. So temperature of two different parts of the rod are different, but the temperature of each part remains constant. I hope you understood this. Next is every transverse means perpendicular. Every transverse section of the rod is an isothermal surface. Means when you cut the rod perpendicular to it, you call that as the cross-sectional area. That is what they are also calling it as a transverse section in another language. That's it. Third, the temperature decreases as we move away from the hot end. And the fourth important is, so this is what you asked. The quantity of heat flowing per second through every cross-section is a constant. Under what scenario? Under the same steady state scenario. Okay. So the rate of change of temperature with distance in the direction of flow of heat is what is called as temperature gradient. I'll come to that point. Okay. So temperature gradient means you already know it is the difference in the temperature divided by the amount of distance that is existing between those two cross sections. See, for example, if I take a cross section here, which is T1, and if I take another cross section here, which is T2, and the distance between them as x, then T1 minus T2 divided by the distance is going to give me the temperature gradient of the particular material. Okay. Now, there is a concept called as thermal conductivity. Okay. We are going to derive some important equation. Observe this, okay? Thermal conductivity. So if you try to consider a block of material of cross-sectional area A and thickness x, so it is basically a block, and the block has a cross-sectional area A, and the thickness, that is the distance between those two surfaces, is going to be x. Suppose its opposite faces are at temperature T1 and T2, where T1 is assumed to be at a higher value and T2 is assumed to be at a lower value. Then what will happen? There will be a heat transfer taking place from T1 to T2. And let's say the amount of heat that is flowing is Q. Okay. So it is found that the amount of heat Q that is flowing from the hot to the cold phase due to the steady state is, first thing, directly proportional to the cross-sectional area. So what are they trying to say? It is Q is observed to be directly proportional to the cross-sectional area of each phase. And second point says it is observed to be directly proportional to the temperature difference that is existing between the two blocks, T1 minus T2. Similarly, it is inversely proportional to whom? The thickness of that material, that is the distance that is existing between the two cross-sectional areas. Okay, so when I combine everything, then what is going to happen? Q will be directly proportional to A into T1 minus T2 divided by X. So it also depends, actually I should write it like this, the amount of heat that flows per unit time, the rate of flow of heat actually. Okay, the amount of heat that flows, actually I'll add a word, per unit time. So something per unit time is called as rate. So rate of flow of heat is directly proportional to whom? Area of cross section, directly proportional to the temperature difference, and inversely proportional to the distance of separation between them. Means more is the distance, lesser is going to be the rate at which it can flow. So right. So when I combine everything, Q by T will be directly proportional to A into T1 minus T2 divided by X, and Q will be directly proportional to A into T1 minus T2 into small t divided by X, and Q will be equal to, if I remove the proportionality symbol, it is going to be K into A into T1 minus T2 into small t divided by X. But generally, I write it like this. I don't write it as Q is equal to something. I write it as Q by T only, because that's a better way of expressing. I'll tell you why.
Sir, what is the small t?
Small t is time. Always remember in physics, small t is time, capital T is temperature. So did you understand? Q stands for heat. Q by T is the rate of flow of heat is directly proportional to whom? The area of cross section is directly proportional to the temperature difference and inversely proportional to the distance of separation between those two cross sections. Right? So when you remove the proportionality symbol, what is the constant that we have introduced? It is K, and that K is what is called as the coefficient of thermal conductivity. I'll come to that point. Okay, I'll come to that point. I'll explain how it works.
Sir,
So before that, please tell me.
sir, how can you explain how rate of flow of heat is directly proportional to area of cross section?
It is expressed, it is observed.
So, like what, sir? If the number of area of cross section increase,
This is the area of cross section. You are able to see this pink color thing. That is the area of cross section. It is not that it doesn't mean it is directly proportional to the number of cross sectional areas. No. Okay. So if I have a shape like this, tell me in which case is the area of cross section more? The
The
pink
first.
color one or the first one, the pink color one? So in that case, the rate of flow of heat will be more because it's simple, right? Because more number of particles are present in the cross-sectional area, which can liberate heat to the surrounding. To the next.
Okay. Okay, sir.
That's the logic. Right. Now, I have to explain some important point here. Concentrate. So what did I say? Q by T is equal to Ka into T1 minus T2, the whole thing divided by X. Okay. So in the case of current electricity, okay. In the case of current electricity, can I write V is equal to I into R? Yes. So V is the potential difference. What is the value of I? Is it not the rate of flow of charges into resistance? Right. But resistance, if I bring it to this side, then Q by T will be equal to V divided by, can I write R as rho into L divided by A? You know this, right, from your 10th standard knowledge.
Yes,
So V into A divided by rho into L is what is Q by T, where here Q stands, small q stands for the charge. If you observe, isn't there a similarity that is existing? This is rate of flow of charge. This is called as rate of flow of heat. Okay. This K is something similar to 1 divided by rho. Here you have area. Here also you have area. Here you have temperature difference. Here you have potential difference. Here you have distance. Here also you have distance. Are you able to understand? So can I say, if you say the rate of flow of charge as electric current, can I say the rate of flow of heat as thermal current? Correct. So thermal current, guys, are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? Now,
Yes, sir.
listen, Q by T is thermal current. Now I'm going to concentrate on the parameters that are there on the right hand side. T1 minus T2 divided by X. Right. So X divided by K into A. Can I write it as, sorry. T1 minus T2 divided by X divided by Ka. Can I write it like this? Right. So this T1 minus T2 is called as temperature difference. And what is this whole parameter that can be called as? You observe Q by T is is inversely proportional to X divided by Ka. So it is inversely proportional. So what am I trying to say here is, this is what? This is thermal resistance is equal to delta T divided by R, where RH is what I'm writing. So which is called as thermal resistance. Does it make sense? Where RH will be equal to X divided by K into A. So here, what did you have? You had rho into L divided by A. Rho is resistivity. So can I say 1 by K is conductivity? Resistivity and conductivity are inversely proportional. That is the reason why K is called as thermal conductivity. Guys, did you understand the similarity that is existing? Yes or no? Please give me a confirmation. So they will not test you this deep and all. Because I can put a question, what will happen when two rods are connected in series and parallel and all. But generally they will not test you that deep. If you know this much, it is enough. Am I clear with till this point? Give me a confirmation.
Yes, sir.
Yes? Good.
Yes, sir.
Clear. Good. So this thermal conductivity, let's see what is going to be the unit of it. The unit of it is going to be joule second inverse, meter inverse, Kelvin inverse. But joule per second can also be called as watt, meter inverse, and Kelvin inverse. Okay. In CGS unit, joule is replaced with calorie, second is second only, meter is replaced with centimeter, and Kelvin inverse is replaced with degree Celsius inverse. So what is going to be the dimensions of K? It is going to be MLT minus 3, K minus 1, because temperature is also a part of the 7 fundamental quantities in the SI unit. So they have mentioned it here, heat, current, and thermal resistance. I've already explained all these things that you can see it later. Okay, some applications are also given, which can be seen later.
Sir, can you just show the units?
Units, joule per second, meter inverse, Kelvin inverse.
Yes, sir.
Right. That's it. So problems, we'll do it later. So once we are done with conduction, the next concept that we are supposed to concentrate upon is convection. Sorry, this print is not clear, but I'll explain it. Listen to it. So it is a process by which heat flows from the region of higher temperature to the region of lower temperature by actual movement of the material particles. Okay. So please write this part alone, since it is not clear. It is a process by which heat flows from the region of higher temperature to the region of lower temperature by the actual movement of whom? Material particles. So which materials exhibit the property of convection? They are liquids or gases, because they have the feasibility to because the particles of those two materials have the feasibility to move within the material, right? So that is, liquids and gases collectively are called as fluids. So what happens? Fluids are heated mainly by the process of convection, in which there are two important phenomena that comes into picture: buoyancy and gravity. Let me explain this. Okay. So if you look at this diagram, so there are some crystals of KMnO4. I'm not sure how many of you have seen KMnO4. What color do you get when you put it in water? When you put potassium permanganate into water, any idea what color you're going to get?
Pale pink.
Something, it looks something like purple. What you say is right. So it's somewhat looks like purple in color. So when you have these crystals of, generally crystals of KMnO4, you can actually get it. It'll be like a small salt-like structure which is black. Okay, and it's a very powerful thing that it can change the color of liquid very fast. So when these crystals of KMnO4 are here and water is here, and when you start heating the crystals of these, then what is going to happen is, when the fluid is heated from below, the hot portion at the bottom. So what will happen to the hot portion at the bottom? Generally, materials tend to expand. And when we talk about liquids, they can expand very fast because the molecules are already loosely bound. So when they tend to expand, okay, what is going to happen to its volume? When they tend to
Increase.
expand, volume will increase. Then what is going to happen to density subsequently?
Decrease.
It will decrease. When density decreases, what can that material do with respect to the layers above it? So less denser substance has a tendency to move in the upper direction or lower direction. Lesser is the density, it tends to move in the upper direction. Correct? So now listen, now put all the logics together and we'll try to understand. When the fluid is heated from below, the hot portion at the bottom expands and becomes less dense. Because of this, what will happen is, because of buoyancy, the lighter portion rises up and the denser, colder fluid takes the position by moving downward. So there is a colder fluid which is at the top. So the liquid which is in directly contact with the flame will be of higher temperature, that will start moving in the upward direction, and the colder liquid which is at the top will start moving in the downward direction. So there is actually an exchange of position taking place, right? So when it moves down, why is it going to move down? Because of gravity, obviously, right? So that is why they told two important parameters. One is buoyancy and the second is gravity, which plays an important role. So it starts moving downwards. Then what will happen is, there is a current which is going to get set up in this fluid because there is actual motion of particles. Listen. So what will happen in this case is, the convection current will be set up in the fluid, right? And you're able to see the actual movement of the liquid can be seen by coloring the liquid with potassium permanganate crystal placed at the bottom. You can actually see them. Okay. So this is how the basic process of convection takes place. If somebody asks you, what is the logic involved behind convection? Can you guys answer it now? You need not explain the exact observation. Did you understand what is going to happen? Can you put it in two statements and tell me? Just finish it in 2 points. Can someone explain it to me in 2 points? The process of convection. First thing, the liquid which is directly in contact with the, or the liquid which is closer to the flame will expand, and due to expansion, it becomes less denser and will start rising up. And the colder liquid which is at the top will come down because of the difference in density. So when this is going to happen, what is going to be set up in this material? It is the convection current.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, this we assume like we are heating it from the bottom. What if we heat from the side, like horizontally?
Same thing. When you heat it from the side, what will happen? This part will become hotter. Now this part is colder. This hotter one will tend to move up, and this colder one will tend to move down.
Sir, but then gravity is in like different
Gravity is
direction.
there. No, it is there. So I'm talking about this layer. See, for example, this layer, this is hotter, so less dense. This is colder, more dense. This will come down, this will go up. Same logic.
Sir, so the heat won't be transferred horizontally.
Heat won't be transferred means there is a possibility that collision will take place. There is a possibility that collision will take place, but here we don't speak mainly about collision because it is the gravity and the buoyancy that is dominating factor. Because when can I surely say that collision will take place? See, for example, you have a ball here, you have a ball here. Okay? Let's say you're playing carom board. And there's the coin and there's a striker. If you hit this, when can I 100% say that collision will take place with this?
Sir, it depends on the direction of force.
Okay,
and,
depends on direction. Okay, I'm giving you all the conditions. It depends on the you have hit it in the right direction. You have given the striker enough velocity. Okay, these two things you have achieved. If that is the case, can I say 100% there will be a collision taking place between the striker and this coin?
So, considering that it's a smooth surface, like horizontal surface,
Okay, it's a smooth
friction is-
surface. That's what I'm saying. Even if it is a smooth surface or rough surface, I mentioned that you have given enough velocity. I already told it in my statement. You can say that this will go and hit the coin. Yes or no?
So the coin will be at rest, right?
That is what I was expecting. Provided you don't disturb this coin. Correct. I'm Subhadip, try to understand. I'm trying to relate all the points that you have asked. You told me whether heat will get transferred in the horizontal direction or not. I'm saying heat can get transferred if there is a collision that is taking place in the horizontal direction. Now, this carom board example is telling me that this is one particle, there is another particle. I can say that there is a sure shot collision that is going to take place. Means this is the hotter particle which will have higher kinetic energy, and this is the particle which has zero kinetic energy. So, a particle will go as provided the one which is having zero velocity is at its position. Here. So in solids, I can surely say that this particle is going to be at rest only. Whereas in liquids, what will happen? This particle itself will have some dynamic motion, due to which I cannot 100% guarantee to the, or I cannot 100% account to the process of collision that will take place or not. That is the reason why we don't speak about it. You're able to understand?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Yeah, okay. Not for my side, so you're able to think, right?
Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
That's good. Yes.
Sir?
Ah.
Sir, the conversion current will keep on taking place until we stop heating.
Yeah, until you stop heating. See, it's not about, even if you stop heating, convection current will still exist because you have already disturbed the particles from their equilibrium position. Until all those particles, see, it's a simple example. Let's say you're heating water. Okay. So I'm not sure during the COVID time, did anyone ask you to take steam? Like, most of the promotions are made, right? You're suggested to take steam, right? During the past 2 years. Or generally when you have cold also, you're suggested to take steam. So what is the principle involved behind that steam? So when you generally boil the water to 100 degrees Celsius or more than that, because you're using the word steam. Steam is a vapor. So you need that vapor to be inhaled, correct? So when you heat it on this, when you keep it on the stove and keep heating it, you will be observing some steam. Now tell me one thing, after you remove it from the stove or whatever gas, whatever heat source it is, you mean to say that the water bubbles have settled down or has the steam stopped? Nitish, answer this question.
No, sir. No.
No, right? Then
No,
you got
sir.
your answer? You got your answer?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
convection current will still exist. That is what you are able to see in the form of bubbles or something. It will still exist. Okay. So having all these points in mind, we need to understand how convection is basically classified into. It is basically classified into two types. One is called as natural convection and the second is forced convection. So natural convection means name itself is suggesting something which happens on its own. So if a material moves due to the difference in density, the process of heat transfer is called natural or free convection. Okay. So here what will happen is natural convection generally arises due to unequal heating of fluid, unequal heating and gravity. Here, more heated and less dense parts of the fluid rise and are replaced by the cooler parts. So natural convection is responsible for the origin of different types of winds in the atmosphere because it is happening naturally. Okay, naturally it is happening. But when you talk about forced convection, the name itself is suggesting you are forcing this kind of a process to take place, right? If a heated material is forced by an external agency like a pump or a blower, then the process of heat transfer is what is called as forced convection. See, for example, you can talk about your air conditioner, refrigerator, all these things involved in the process of forced convection. Means you're actually transferring the heat only. So what is the work of an air conditioner? To reduce the temperature in your room, right? So for that, what does it do? It will try to pull all the particles of higher temperature and push it outside, for which it is using a compressor. So that process is not happening naturally.
Sorry?
It is using a compressor, which is a forced convection.
Sir,
Tell me.
sir, in forced convection, only the rate of flow of heat increases, right? The amount of heat does not increase, right?
The rate of flow of heat here we don't speak about. No, there we spoke about rate of flow of heat only in the case of conduction. Here we cannot speak about the rate of flow of heat. Because the heat itself is getting, like the particles are moving in random directions, in whichever direction they feel like. Right. So don't get confused. We speak about the rate of flow of heat only in the case of thermal conduction. That is why the parameters that are getting involved are called as thermal conductivity, coefficient of thermal conductivity. The conductivity is the word that is coming. We don't use the word conductivity, something like that. There is nothing like that, first of all, existing. I'm just trying to form a word. You're able to understand? So here we don't speak about the rate of flow of heat at all. We can't, in fact. Okay.
Okay, sir.
It is something like turbulent, to be more precise. So again, the phenomena based on thermal convection, this is again an application which I'm giving it to you. Okay. So the next part that is left out is radiation. So after radiation, I have to explain some more theory. So as per my prediction, I was supposed to complete this chapter last week itself. So I thought I'll complete it today, but it is going to take one more day. So thermodynamics might get slightly. So the schedule which I shared with you, right? You can actually postpone it, postpone each lesson by 2 days. If needed, I might take extra classes also, which I'll update you at least 2 days before. Okay. So in the next class, we will be discussing about radiation. Before that, I suggest you all to revise conduction and convection and have a thorough knowledge of it. Okay. So that's it from my statements. Right. Any other doubt from today's class?
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Then we'll wind up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.